and your research. Well, for philatelic knowledge, everybody, I would say most exhibitors have it, because they have been collecting and studying for a period of time and have spent a portion of their savings. A lot of their savings are acquiring the material for the exhibit, so they should know, what they have been buying. But when it comes to exhibiting postal history competitively, not all exhibitors know how to show the material in the best possible way to impress judges. It's okay if you want to do a display in a club level or at other non-competitive exhibition, but when it comes to competitive exhibitions, you need to do your best. So some exhibitors might think a picture is worth 1,000 words. I mean, everybody knows this world famous painting hanging in the, I think it's an Oslo National Museum by the famous painter Edvard Munch. And probably a picture like this, you probably no need to say nothing. I mean, everybody knows. Okay. But without proper description, even a world rarity like this, in the Mauritius Postal History exhibit, is unable to persuade the judges to give top score for philatelic knowledge. Just showing the cover, maybe in the court of honor, is good enough, but in your exhibit, without any descriptions, the judges will probably be impressed by your wealth, but probably not your knowledge. Anyway, many exhibit pages are like the previous one in your postal history exhibit. There will be lots of points in knowledge and research and can have a disastrous effect on the medal level. And then you might see the exhibitor be showing this face when he sees the result of the exhibit. He screams at the judges, at the feedback. So why is it so important? Because knowledge and personal studies account for 35 points. So it is essential to get as many points as possible in this category if you wish to get the high medal. Now, how to do it? Why you need to get as many points as possible in knowledge? It's because, as you know, you've heard Henrik, in importance, sometimes there's nothing much you can do about it to gain 10 out of 10 points if your subject is not of a really huge importance. And it may not be the best. Therefore, you might only get 9 points or 8 points. It's often restricted by a subject. And treatment, of course, you heard it in Dan's seminar, that you have done your best, but still the judges think that it is still not that perfect, and they might be rather reluctant to give you 20 points out of 20 for treatment. And then, of course, rarity. And then, of course, Henrik says, you may not have all the rarities in the world. And especially the worst thing is the judges know that there are some rarities which are available, but you don't have it. And that you're stuck. You're not getting full marks for rarity. And then of condition, now that is of course, you might have to show less than perfect condition for some items, which are not really available in better condition, but unfortunately, not all judges know. And they say, for example, exhibits like the Indian exhibits, particularly about the military side, military exhibits of India, and then a lot of the judges which are not, really very, very accustomed to that kind of thing will say, oh, you see all these grotty covers, and they won't give full marks for that kind of stuff. And then presentation, you heard Chris have talked about presentation, and sometimes it's very difficult to achieve a perfect balance in all the frames. And then there are, in my experience, there are judges that actually seldom give 5 out of 5 points unless it is the best in the world. So you might be a little bit stuck with getting full marks for all these things. But therefore, it is easy to lose 1 point in each category. And then you're ending up with 95 points, which means you must get 35 out of 35 for knowledge and research. Now, but is it possible? Well, it is. It really is a matter of time or money. Of course, time is the own time spent doing research. And they would take many months or years, but would cost relatively little. For example, I'm sure many of you have actually studied something for the best part of your life. I mean, Henrik has spent, I don't know, maybe 20 years, 30 years, doing his research. I mean, many of us have done that. Be a recognized expert in the area you're exhibiting. Now, I mean, if you are a well-known character, in that particular area, then when it comes to exhibiting, some judges might get sympathetic and say, he's the expert, he knows everything. Okay. Of course, the best way actually is to write a book or books or articles in well-known publications like the London Philatelist, of course, Collectors Club, and all the maybe specialized societies journals to show yourself, to advertise yourself that you are an expert. And of course, the final way to do it is to hire someone knowledgeable to do write-up and research. Well, there's no rule to say that you can't hire anybody to do write-up and research, particularly, for example, the technical side with the presentation. I mean, sometimes, if you are not really an expert in computer and etc., it might be a little bit difficult. And some expert might be able to help you to do all the setting up, etc. There's no rule against that. The only rule is that the material must be owned by you. So, but however, this will cost much more money, especially if the hired person is an expert. So, how do you show philatelic technology exhibiting? Now, this slide actually comes from our Streamline Seminar 2, which you can actually download from the Postal History website. Okay, now this slide actually talks about implicit knowledge, which is material selected to tell the story. Explicit knowledge, which is explanation and analysis in the write-up, basically is just how you write up, how you explain the material in your exhibit. And of course, personal research, which is if you find out, not all subjects can have much personal research because it might be a well-known subjects and there's not much new information available or what you can find. So, okay, implicit knowledge is shown by the choice of items reflecting the knowledge of the chosen area, and the material included or excluded from the exhibit able to tell the philatelic story. So this will indicate a strong or weak grasp of the chosen topic. If the exhibit consists of mostly common covers showing common rates, routes, or markings, okay, then, for example, I mean, if you have a rate exhibit, I mean, only showing the very common single rates, without multiple rates, registered, late fee, etc. And for example, in Markophily exhibit, just showing postmarks and stamps without covers, knowing that these postmarks can be found on covers. See, such exhibits will not score well in knowledge, or sometimes even rarity. If missing material includes difficult to find rates, routes, or markings. Okay, I'll come to that. There's a little dilemma about this one. If the exhibit is just accumulation of rare covers without any connection to each other, now what we call, sometimes we call missing link, or you can't pop, the story becomes choppy, and then there's deficiency in philatelic knowledge, and the judges would not give high rarity points, but would give higher rarity points because you got all the rare items. I mean, he looked at rare items, you can only give, it's a rare item, one or two known or unique item. And then he has to give you some points for rarity. But however, he might give less for knowledge and treatment points. Now, having said that, the judging trends tend to evolve. I mean, this is something maybe 10, 20 years ago, the judges would look at it that way. But things have changed a lot because, we are supposed to evolve. And implicit knowledge tends to be judged under treatment nowadays, where you're talking about how and what and how you show an exhibit in an exhibit. So, for example, if you were showing something using very common covers or something like that to show the subject, you might actually maybe not lose too much point. The treatment points you might suffer. Anyhow, the most important thing nowadays when we talk about knowledge is explicit knowledge, which is how you describe what you're actually showing and how you impress the judges with your description. The items, for example, the covers or postcards or whatever, should be properly and accurately described. Now, this is very important because although that actually when you come to judging an exhibit and you've got maybe 80 pages, 128 pages, it is true that all the judges have time to look at every single page. So, I mean, you are chancing it if you make mistakes that the judge might find out. But unfortunately, if the judge happens to find one page with a glaring error in it, now the judge might think that your knowledge is not as sound as it seems, and it really might affect his judgment when he gives points to your knowledge. So, I mean, you cannot afford to make a single mistake in any of the pages. Okay, well, the practical thing is this text you use to describe your item should be clear, concise, and easy to read for everyone. But most of us have actually accumulated so much knowledge about your material and just tend to write a lot, on the pages. But I've seen exhibits like that in the past, which is the whole, you've got a small cover in the middle and the whole of the page is covered with text. Now that would not achieve balance of text and material. It might actually affect your presentation. So that is not, you have to be clear, concise, and easy to follow for everyone. And then all relevant markings and rates are noted with emphasis on aspect for which the item is included. For example, if the focus is on rates, you have to talk about the rates, and on the markings, talk about markings. Okay, so what's personal study? Personal study is basically how you're going to describe your item. For example, in a rate description, it includes what is being sent. I mean, for example, is it a letter, a postcard, and the postage, of sending the item, and the exact period of the rate was in effect. When you're talking about route description, you want to say where and where, from where to where, and then of course the period of operation is very important. And whether there's any route interruption or the consequence of that, and maybe the letter, the mail has to be rerouted somewhere. And then in the Markov exhibit, the description, the proper description should include the location of use of the postmark, the earliest and latest recorded date, the color of the marking, well, it's still obvious. Sometimes you may have 3 different colors of the marking, and it's maybe some unusual usages. Okay. So in a 2C exhibit, in addition to the above, what I've talked about, and because you've got non-philatelic material, but you've got to be very careful that your non-philatelic material is not overwhelming the philatelic material. Well, there is no rule to, at the moment, you've heard about the treatment, there's we haven't actually defined a proportion, what's the percentage of non-philatelic material in a 2C exhibit, but obviously you're not going to have 90% non-philatelic material, and then only about 10% of philatelic items. After all, it is a postal history exhibit. I mean, it's not an exhibit of newsletters or pictures or photographs or timetables. So there is a proper use of non-philatelic items. You shouldn't actually put something which is totally irrelevant to the subject. And then you will find that the so-called the authenticity of the non-philatelic material. I mean, some of the philatelic materials are fake, or maybe a reproduction. But obviously, if you're talking about a government document or something, you're unlikely to get the original. So, I mean, obviously, maybe a photocopy is allowed. Right. So this is just a made-up example of how you describe the cover. Okay. So this cover is obviously it will be on an exhibit about transatlantic mail. So I mean the destinations, of course, you talk about USA to France. What you have got here, I mean, if you look at it, it's just Baltimore to Paris, April 7, 1851, hand stamp paid in numeral 5 is very much a catalog description, and you must try to avoid that. And furthermore, you know, there's a little ship here. I mean, what does it mean? I mean, okay, so can it improve it a little bit by adding a bit more? Still not better. You're just describing the postmark and the box colonies and Article 13. I mean, you know, it's nothing much. I mean, you still have very much a catalog description and still have got a clue. What is this? Right, just improves it a little bit. Now, this bit actually explains, there's a 5 here. It explains actually this is what it is. It's actually a rate mark. This is actually a British open mail rate paying to the port of departure. And now it's got, oh, this is a Cunard ship Canada. Is a silhouette of the ship. So what's got to do with it? I mean, maybe, well, the judges could assume, or you could assume that, oh, this letter must be carried by this ship, but it doesn't say. I mean, you know, showing this may not help much. Well, okay, so there's more explanation about the colonies and article. You know, under the 1843 Franco-British Treaty, and you've got this marking about the letter bill. Okay, it's helpful, but still incomplete. You can do a little bit better, actually, by explaining the other marking, like the 15 centime mark, and the rest of the markings are here, and then a little itinerary of the ship, you know, of the ship. It says the steamer Canada. So everything is explained here in the description. So you needed quite a lot of descriptions and not just a catalog description for the mark. Let's see an actual example of this description. It's an excellent page about the parcel, the carriage of parcel to some Danish stamps. Okay. He's got a great rate treatment. I mean, it says the rate here, okay, is the parcel within a certain period to Greenland. Okay, and there's a storyline here about the parcel. This is actually a piece, is a letter, I think, attached to the parcel. Okay, it's the parcel going to Greenland has to be carried by an agent, the so-called the Royal Greenland Trading Company. And then you talk about the description here. I think which I can use this magnifying. You can actually see it clearer. You see the domestic parcel. Let's talk about domestic parcels. Got parcel rates very clearly here. So it's got the storyline. Mail to Greenland could be sent at domestic rate and had to be addressed to the Royal Greenland Trading Company. Okay, and there's a little bit about stamp details which are going a little bit later. And this, of course, this is a description of what it is, which is a parcel card. And then you've got the description of what it is, not apparent, because, I mean, obviously, the exhibitor has actually worked out that this is a heavy parcel, 25 pounds by the rate it paid. And also the rarity statement, okay, one of the 4 recorded parcel letters sent to Greenland. So now the beauty of the knowledge of the exhibitor is also this additional, so-called additional knowledge, you see, which explains why there's a little number, why 298, and what was this? So he says here, 298 on the upper corner is the registration number used by the Royal Greenland Trading Company during this transportation from Copenhagen to Greenland. And then he also deduced the date of the parcel by the studying of the print numbers of the used stamps and the shipping list, which is really quite remarkable. If you look at the date stamp, so I'm not an expert in the area, but you can't really see the year. You can see the date, but not the year. So by deducing, by using the shipping list, and then this information about the print run, print number, the use stamps, I mean, he deduced that this parcel must be sent in 1881. Anyway, okay, so we look at the next slide. Now, this is actually a proper exhibit page about is a route exhibit about the foreign mail via Indochina. In Yunnan, the mail could go in several different routes, and then one of the route, which is maybe a scarcer route, is actually via Tonkin, Indochina, from Yunnan. So you could see that the exhibitor, first thing he said is a rarity statement, earliest recorded cover from any of the Chinese imperial post offices in Yunnan. And then you've got a little personal research about, why, and from the previous studies, and they recorded so and so, and this is the earliest date known. And then he's got a description of this cover from Simao, which is a Chinese, this is actually the Chinese council. And the Chinese post office actually sent the letter across the border to Tonkin to be sent. So therefore, the stamp here it was cancelled by Lao Kai. Lao Kai is actually is a town in Tonkin, and then he has added a little photograph, a map to show the route. Okay, which has the advantage of one, occupying the space. There's a balance between the text and the material shown. You probably could not show another cover because this is a pretty rare item, and then it's just a little map to explain how the letter went. Right. Okay. So the next slide is a Macaulay exhibit. And it's about a British post office in Hoi Hao. Now, Hoi Hao is a town in Hainan Island in southern China. It's quite a small post office, and this this postmark is actually the first CDS of the town. Now, well, it's got the proper description of a Macaulay exhibit about the ERD, which is earliest recorded date, latest recorded date, the type found, and they explain about the postal agency, etc. And the interesting thing is here that he showed a stamp, the $1 stamp, you see, which is highly unusual. I mean, he didn't actually say it's very rare because probably doesn't know. I mean, in a Macaulay exhibit, in the regulation, the stamp does not matter. I mean, only you need a postmark, a clear postmark on the stamp. But that you won't say is a rarity. Although, I mean, if you have the knowledge, you probably say that it's compared to the other common values, which is one of the postcard rate, letter rate. $1 must be a nice, very heavy letter or a parcel. So it's relatively rare, but this is more of a knowledge problem than rather rarity problem. But what he's showing is a bit of personal research here, showing how the index letter C, the different variety of the index letter C facing different directions. Although you don't talk about this is a major rarity or something, but it is actually some personal research, some interest, that he probably gained knowledge it gained points in knowledge rather than actually rarity points. Okay. So after all the postal history aspects have already been appropriately described, a brief note of traditional aspects of the stamps and postal stationery can be used if space permits. Now, this actually shows that the exhibitor has knowledge of the stamps and stationery and particularly when these are relevant to the postal history. Now, but be careful not to go into great details about the adhesive stamps. You don't talk about, whether it's a plate 2 or whatever printing, and you go on to the great lengths about the stamps, or it's got a perforation fault or whatever, or there's a printing fault or something, unless it really is significant to the postal history side. So if the information regarding the stamp is wrong, that's bad news. I mean that if the judge knows, then it would probably affect your knowledge. But if you're giving too much details regarding the stamps of stationery, it might affect the treatment score, because they say, this postal history and your treatment is rather more of a traditional side. Okay, there's another example showing the use of the Bordeaux printing of the cerise stamp used in China, which is fairly rare, and there are maybe only half a dozen covers known, because the Bordeaux printing was an emergency printing when Paris was surrounded, and it's an imperf stamp, and then used in China. It's only maybe one batch was actually sent to China, and then there was a little description at the bottom here, showing a little small history, about the stamp, which is not, not really. It's like appendix, and not really sort of in the major description, which is very much postal history of the talking about the special rate of the cover actually sent through the so-called the summit route before the opening of the Mont-Cenis tunnel. So personal research, there are different sources, and of course we should go for the primary source of the research, which is the archives. You go and hit the archives, you go to the British Library, you go to Smithsonian, you go to government archives, post office archives to do your own research. And then of course you got the help of contemporary newspapers. Sometimes you got to be careful because they might have printing errors. But anyway, it's better than actually other sources. For example, there are other public and internet internal memos and notices. Of course, you get the airline, ship, railway timetables. You can do your research, and then sometimes letter contents can be very helpful. And then, of course, eyewitness accounts, particularly when you have some military mail. You look inside, they might account. Might say that somebody, 1,000 soldiers got killed or something, which would be interesting. And then, of course, the secondary source of the personal research come from published books and auction catalogs, which you've got to be very careful, because some of the auction catalogs are not actually doing a good job, and they might have mistakes. Study group publications, there are specialized public study groups which has some specialized knowledge. Information from the internet. Not so reliable, because if you say that the other websites actually basically copying things from the other, and then if one got the information wrong, then the other might got it wrong. The tertiary source is actually from fellow stamp collectors and stamp dealers, auctioneers, very helpful people, and often give you the correct information, but sometimes it depends on where they got the information from. I mean, if they got it from another friend or something, it might not be accurate. So for personal research, I would actually go for the primary source. It would take a lot of time and probably money to travel to for example, if you want to go to the Ceylon archive, you have to travel to Sri Lanka and etc. I mean, but it's a proper way of doing it. If an exhibitor can make a fact-based rarity statements relying on extensive recordings of known material from personal research, this, of course, will be considered positive in the assessment. If you can actually say, this is one of 5 known of an item, and then you can you can quote, oh, this is where I got this information from. I mean, that is certainly points added to your research. And if the exhibit of a well-studied subject provides an appropriate, fresh approach, these are points for knowledge and personal study. New discoveries should be given full coverage in accordance with their importance. Not often you have new discoveries, particularly in well-studied subject. But if you happen to find something new from studying the primary source, then certainly you would note it. Major discoveries deserve important coverage and recognition and should be identified by the exhibitor. By minor discoveries should not overpower the main exhibit. You could mention it, but don't make a huge paragraph, talking about an inverted date in a postmark or something that is well, I mean, it's not a significant, not a rarity or something. Right. For exhibits where obviously a great deal of real research has been done, a very large proportion of the total points may be given for this research. Now note that for knowledge and research, we give 35 points and there's no breakdown. Now, the reason why is perhaps because, as I've already said, not all subject has new research, you see, or personal research. So I mean, you can't really say, oh, out of 35 points that you got say maybe 25 points for your philatelic knowledge and your personal study, and the rest for the personal research. There might be very little personal research there because everything is already known. Where appropriate, I mean, references could be given to the exhibitor's own or other previously published information. So references must be actually mentioned. But there are several places you could do that. So for example, mentioned in the text on the title page. If you have a title page, you can mention in the text, blah, blah, blah. And then place, or usually a lot of exhibitors actually put it on the list, usually at the end of the title page. Or on the relevant exhibit page, because you have a lot of research or a lot of references, you can actually put it on the individual page where it is relevant. Or mention in the synopsis, which is a very good place to do it. Well, we take a look at another example of Danish postal history. Now this one is about the rates, the pre-UPU rates, letters to Germany, about international mail, and the exhibitors have actually done a very good personal study of all the covers known during this short period of time, where you have the or instead of the skilling as the value. And then you can see that what he has done is all the recorded covers to Germany during this period. And this not only shows that he has done a personal research, he's also actually shown you rarities as well. I mean, you can see, for example, to Belgium, there's only one cover during this period. And it is shown on the particular page like this. So you can go to page 53 and you go and check it out. Now, let me just show you. Right, okay, you can see. For example, to Holland, there's only one recorded with a 20 oral rate. And to Switzerland, the Portugal, it's only one recorded during this period. And this, I would say, is part of the implicit knowledge by using, okay, I mean, pre-UPU letters to Germany, okay, well, they're quite a lot, it's 11 recorded. But he's managed actually to show something which is a combination cover of the skilling and the or. The skilling is postal stationery and the oral stamp paying the same 16 oral rate. I mean, that is, I would say, it's better to show this rather than probably the other 10 covers. And then, of course, you've got only record example of the skilling or combination. So this is actually implicit knowledge. Right. Okay. Okay, so this is just a fun item for personal research. I mean, it's nobody actually. Always there's covers to airmail covers to small islands in the Caribbean, and then a lot of these covers have a horizontal crease, and then collectors normally just reject those covers and waiting for one which is perfect. But you find a few of them are always like that, and it's always in the same position. But why is that? Because and then suddenly when the whole batch of these covers, the official covers actually turn up, and then suddenly you realize why, because these actually are the so-called equivalent of a mailbag, because the letters from Guatemala to these small islands were very few. I mean, if you look at this item, it's 5 grams. There's only one cover, 8 grams another one, and 10 grams probably you got 3 covers. So I mean, with only 3 covers sent on that day, I mean, they probably won't bang it into a mailbag and then just use the cover and send it. And then of course the best way to do it is to fold it up and put it in there and send it out there. So this is something a bit of fun. Anyway, now we talked about the synopsis earlier. So what was the synopsis? Now this is another document sent to the judges in addition to the mandatory title or introduction or front page. Now this is especially useful if the exhibit is not so well known. Usually about 1 or 2 pages, or up to some people send several pages with text and photos and highlights, etc., which may be a little bit too many, but still people are doing it. And then it has some use actually for listing important items which you don't want to cramp your title page with it. And then you also mentioned the time required to assemble the collection, or maybe you've been collecting the area for 20 years and 30 years, and then you start saying that you could say that in your synopsis page. And then you can mention the results of personal research. And then, of course, the references. I mean, you may have a lot more references that you have space for on the title page. And I think the most important part of the synopsis is really this point, which is changes since last exhibited. Unless this is your first time you exhibited, but really, I mean, I know that some judges have photographic memories that they remember every single exhibit, but not many judges actually could remember every single page. I mean, it's nice to have the exhibitors telling you what new things they've added, what changes they've made. But at this moment, the synopsis page, although it's very popular in Americas and probably in Europe as well, but it's not at the moment, it's not that compulsory at FIT STEM exhibitions at the moment. But by all means, I mean, if you have something like that, it would educate the judges. I mean, actually, it would actually show what knowledge you've got. It's like an advertisement, of how knowledgeable I am. So, for example, I'm not going into great details because this is really sort of like I think Dan has actually covered it in his treatment seminar. But you can see, for example, a title page like that, about the 1935 Kita earthquake. Well, I mean, it's a relatively little known subject. Okay. So, I mean, the thing is, this is the proper title page, okay, with objective and scope. I can see that. I think I've been magnifying that. Now, it's got a little history. There's a map, and there's objective and scope, challenges, philatelic important, items highlight very briefly. Even the exhibit plan is fairly brief because this is actually it's the title page of one frame exhibit. Okay, and then he's got some bibliography, okay, which is quite nice. Okay, then with the synopsis page, you could do a lot more. You see, it's quite heavy. You see, you can see a lot more details about the history, a lot more details about the recorded number of covers known, and of course the mention the scope again, the treatment, how he treated the subject, and then there's the philatelic importance, well, and the knowledge, my knowledge, my research, how rare these things are with less than 200 recorded covers, highlights, changes after. This is things, changes after 2019 exhibition, you see. All right, and then his references. I mean, basically, some of his own publication. I mean, that is obviously this will be sent to the judges before the judge actually sees the exhibit. But if a judge actually sees what he has written, I mean, he will be impressed, and he will very much look forward to check it out. Whether he's done all this in his exhibit, and if he has done all this, he's going to get a favorable assessment. Anyway, alternate material. Now, this is also technology. Covers with enhanced postal markings. Postal markings added or removed, stamps added or removed, or extensive repairs. I mean, these covers should not be shown because it's obviously that they are not the best items. But sometimes it is sometimes it's unavoidable. If you got, for example, a very rare item, I mean, with stamp torn off, or maybe a post office enhanced slightly by somebody or something, but you have to state what's there. I mean, that's your knowledge. I mean, and then doubtful items will be referred to the expert team for further assessment by the judging team. And the expert team will, of course, examine some of the items on the frames. If they note something, they will, of course, check it out. And if the items are obviously forgery, then you will have problems with marks being knocked off. And the marks actually the expert team would recommend a dropping of points from the exhibit. But from where? I mean, usually it's from knowledge, because it is really the knowledge of the exhibitor. That the exhibitor should know that he has put the forged covers in his exhibit. Right. So what is this? This is actually is a grotty cover. It's just torn, it's dirty, and it has a fake mark. Unfortunately, somebody put the Shanghai paid mark on the cover, probably because it was so grotty, and the forger bought it cheap, and just to make it sellable, he put a postmark there. But obviously, the exhibitor has done research, and it is better than what it seems. I mean, it is actually it's a cover recovered from the Colombo wreck. So and furthermore, it's the only cover known to him to Europe without the usual wreck of the Colombo cachet, because he's sent to France, and it is still in it's not so bad conditions. So it just went through without further markings. But how to show it? He's got a fake mark there. If he had left it, and the judge checked it, and certainly will refer to the expert team and say, is this all right? Because if you look at it, it's certainly an unpaid letter, and a paid marking shouldn't really appear on it. So, I mean, showing it is unavoidable for example, in a crash and wreck mail exhibit, but you have to state there's a fake marking in it. So obviously, you shouldn't chance rubbing it off, because with this kind of paper, it probably torn a hole in it. So you see, circular marking believed to be a forgery. Okay, so as this and stating the reason that it has not been prepaid, so it shouldn't have a paid mark there. Anyhow, okay. So, there. Well, there you go. So I hope I hope that is just a brief talk about knowledge and personal research. And the exhibited pages I've shown, I would like to thank the foreign people. I would like to thank Henrik. I would like to thank Kurt. I'd like to thank my friend Charles, Dan, and Neil for actually allowing me to show the pages in this talk. Well, thank you very much, and I hope that you like it, and I'm sure that you probably have a lot of comments and criticism about the seminar. So please fire away. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah.
Really nice presentation.
Yes. So, any questions?
This is Robert Marion. I'd just like to say I've found this talk extremely useful. It's probably one of the best talks I've heard on philatelic presentation for many a while. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for your kindness. Yes, and actually, there is actually something I would like to discuss with, I mean, I see the list of participants. There are some very, very knowledgeable judges amongst all of you, and I would very much like to discuss this point about the implicit knowledge, which actually it did appear in our official actually judging seminar as one of the judging criteria. And then you heard originally I had a fuller coverage of what's implicit knowledge, but I have discussed with my colleagues, especially amongst the Postal History Commission, Henrik and Dan Walker, about this issue of confusing confusing the treatment with the knowledge aspect. I mean, would anybody, for example, Henrik or Dan, wish to comment on this aspect?
I can comment a little bit. I mean,
yes, yes, please.
I think it is clear development over time that 20-25 years ago, you could get a lot of points in knowledge by just showing the right material without much text. At least my observations when I have been involved in juries, both nationally and internationally, that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. So even though you have what you think is self-explanatory rarities and material, nowadays to get full points, you still need to describe the items. So the significance of this implicit knowledge has gone down over time, and the significance of the explicit knowledge, so good descriptions, have gone up with time. That's just what I think is an observation that seems to be the case. And I think it's good that you should not just hang up covers on pages and expect everybody to know them, but you actually have to describe why you have them on the page. So yeah, but that's an observation.
This is exactly what one of the questions from Winston Williams about. I mean, he says there's a crossover between the knowledge and research and other areas. That means presumably he means treatment of this aspect. So you probably have answered his question. Yes, and Chris King mentioned the Royal Julian Chapman Fund gives grants to research travel. That's wonderful, because sometimes if you have to travel to Falklands, it probably costs you a lot of money and time as well. Yes. Anyway,
I think we've actually given a grant to travel to the Falklands.
yes. That was a great article. That was a great article.
Yeah.
Yes, there's just someone could go so far in doing personal research is most admirable. Anyway, and there's a question from Fernando Prato. He says, regarding 2C class you talked about non-philatelic material, but how do you evaluate knowledge about the historic and social part? Yes, that of course, 2C is I mean, because I mean, you talk about the historic and social part, and there are points actually given to that that aspects of it. We just depends how, for example, how important your historic, the social part of the things, and how you actually make use of all the non-philatelic material to talk about the story. Okay. We need to repeat. Okay. Right. Eric Schurer have 2 comments from my experience as an exhibitor, but he has actually, Eric, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to give some comments. I think these talks are very interesting and very helpful. Still, me being an exhibitor only and not a judge, especially in what the topic we have been talking about today, I really don't see too much ending up in the judge practice in most exhibitions. Yeah, it's like first thing is I think half of the judges cannot even determine between philatelic knowledge and true research, because true research is limited to a very low number of exhibitors, let's say 20–30% maybe. I don't know, maybe that's even high. I think it's like if I compare exotic themes and topics with non-exotic topics, I think this is the big thing where we have a determination. We have many very nice exhibits on very unexotic topics, and we have exhibits on very exotic topics. One thing is, for me, I have 2 fifth-level exhibits, one on French India. There's a lot of publications available, and I basically just do a write-up. I just like read everything in French, in English, and I do a write-up, and I have an exhibit on reply cards. There's no literature at all, at least until this year when Jamie Scarf's book was published. There has never been comprehensive literature. And I always get the same points on knowledge, even though in one I don't have any knowledge and research. I'm just writing up, and the other one is like 15 years, 20 years of research. It's very strange. And I had that a couple of times, even at the same exhibitions with the same jurors, having this comparison of 2 exhibits, where one is really research and the other one is just write-up.
Okay.
If I can comment, I'm on both sides, exhibitor as well as a judge, and I can follow a little bit Eric's comment regarding to judges sometimes, and it's a bit frustrating. We have all experienced that, but I always say to that point that show me your library, and I tell you what kind of a judge you are. No, it's you. Maybe you can laugh with it, but it's nothing to laugh about, because
that's right.
We have, and now I talk for Belgium, yes. We have national judges that collect Ionian Islands, and they don't even have, let's say, everything existing on literature on Ionian Islands, and then they have to judge things about Ireland and Hamburg and Bremen and transatlantic mail and whatever. So I think that I understand Eric's point, what he is telling you, what he is telling us, that a lot of, or let's say a large percentage of the judges are not always good prepared, because they have lack of a very wide, extensive library going from Aden to Zanzibar, everything between it. Yeah?
True, true.
And that gives problems if you go and reflect that to the level of the exhibitors. And that's why in what we told 2 weeks ago with Hendrik's wonderful presentation, that you have to explain to the exhibitors what could be approved or whatever, but you can only do that if you have knowledge, if you have an extensive library. Otherwise, it will not work. And people like Eric, for instance, then they say, look, what's happening here? And they use, the middle finger and they leave philately, and that should never happen.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, what's actually going on is that you have a judging team, and the judging team consists of maybe 3 or 4 judges. And nowadays is quite common that, for example, you've got, say, maybe 30 exhibits to judge, and you ask, or for example, member A, who's actually has not very good knowledge on certain areas, and why don't you just go and just to make some studies of that subject. Usually what you do, for example, the team leader would normally do is to just basically throw out, say, 30 exhibits to all your team members and ask them, look, who would like to judge these exhibits? I mean, obviously the guy who stick up his hand will probably have some knowledge in that area. I mean, there is a far better way in some exhibits where usually the team leader has to be the leader, and he has to do everything and judge everything. And then if you have so, for example, relatively, I would say, I won't say incompetent, but so lesser knowledgeable team members, then they would just be totally mute and say, oh, nowadays you just tend to be in the high level exhibitions, and you've got really good competent judges. That's what you usually do, so that everybody actually has to read up. If they still don't know, they could actually consult people before they actually go to judge the exhibits on the frames. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Andrew, may I comment on Eric's comment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Eric, I understand completely where you come from, and I give you 80% right in what you are saying. But there is also I would just like to explain what's going on in those 2 cases. Yeah. So what is basically in the very well-researched area, there has been a lot of discussions among philatelists and judges what to do about these areas where, as you say, you need to get the right literature. And if you get the right literature, you don't have to do any own research, but you have to describe your items. But it actually says in the rules that in those cases, we are judging how you use the known information. So you can still, even though you have the book, you can still write that knowledge well or not so well. So basically, if you take out the most relevant information for your treatment, for your story, and you do that excellently, and you know everything that is available from that area to describe those items, we are not punishing for that, for you not having done research, because then there would be many classical areas that you could not actually exhibit and get 95 points for. And that is not wanted, that should be like that. So therefore, actually, and I think it's right that it should not be like that. So if an area is very well researched, we do, and it says in the rules that we cannot punish people from not having done original research. So we then judge the level of knowledge that the exhibitor has acquired. Now, on the other side, where I also come from, I mean, until very recently, when I put out those books, in my postal history exhibit, nobody had the information needed to understand that exhibit. So I had to describe that in a way that this original research, which has gone over 20 years in archives and so on, I had to try to put that on pages to make not only my knowledge available, but also make it understandable. And sometimes these, what I would call original research exhibits, they sometimes write so much text and communicate this research so difficult to the judges that the judges don't understand it. And then sometimes those exhibits don't get the credit they should have. So I'm just trying to explain what is going on in those cases. So in the cases where there's very little research and literature, a large part of the knowledge and research points are actually given for research, because you would have to do the research to make proper descriptions. And in the areas where a lot of information has already been published, most of the points in knowledge and research are actually given for how you use the research of others. So it's given more for the personal knowledge. But that is a wanted thing. So I'm just trying to explain what's going on.
Okay, thanks. I've got a question from Ledrasa. He's talking about if we have an error stamp used on a letter or stamp used for a very limited time, do we need to explain in great details or just a little in postal history class? Well, I think the thing is postal history is postal history. I mean, if you talk about too much, you certainly, if you have something of a stamp of very limited use, you know, for example, the slide I showed about the use of Bordeaux stamp in China, and you should certainly mention it, but you're not in great details. Otherwise, you know, if you start talking about, you know, what printing and great details about how the stamp error occurred or something, you know, okay, it's your knowledge, but the thing is, some judges, I'm saying some judges would say, look, I mean, you know, this is irrelevant, and it might even cause them to deduct marks if you do it all the time. Maybe one page or something, it probably wouldn't matter. But you know, if you keep doing it on every single page about the error stamps or something, then you might have problems with the treatment. You know, people think that you are just doing it as a traditional approach. Okay, I got a question from Pablo Palazzo. So what do you think about the use of census and this kind of demographic sources in order to show the rarity of origins and destinations? Yeah, by all means, I think one of the slides I show, one of the slides I show is just doing precisely that kind of thing about just a research and the rarities of origins. I mean, just showed how many letters come from the different places, and you could do that. Right, Henry? Okay.
Sure,
Yep.
sure, absolutely. I mean, doing
Well, you did it.
research on how much is available is part of knowledge, I think.
Yeah, that's right. It's knowledge.
What exists. It's
Yeah.
part of philatelic research.
That's right. Okay, as from Hugh or more from South Africa, I understand that the synopsis is not judged, i.e. it's not taken into account by the judges. Is this so? And if it is, will it change? In one FIP exhibition, the jury panel told me that they had neither seen nor read my synopsis. The subject was somewhat obscure. Okay, right. I think I've actually mentioned that if you have a really obscure subject, I mean, I think that the synopsis would be a good idea, because I mean, you probably have to quote a lot of references, which probably won't have space for the title page. Well, okay. May I ask your questions? Actually, the one that they had neither seen, the jury panel has neither seen nor read my synopsis. I mean,
you're at the mercy of the committee. This is Pat. You're at the mercy of the committee. You send the synopsis in, but you do not know if the jury will see it. Some shows will pass that along, others won't, and you don't know ahead of time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I receive a synopsis, I'll certainly check it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't apply to all judges. I mean, you know, some judges might just say, oh, you know, you've written a 5 pages, 6 pages synopsis, just to probably ignore it, or something, you know, or maybe the judge thinks that he knows the
another
subject
whole
so well.
topic. They shouldn't be too long.
Yeah, right, Pat. Yeah. So, okay, it is not taken into account by the judges. Well, certainly some judges do. I mean, I always do. I mean, you know, I look at the synopsis because there's actually synopsis help judges to judge exhibit. I mean, and if you have written a very good synopsis like the one that I showed, I mean, it will really impress them about your knowledge and personal research. And obviously, you know, you've got the references as well that the judges could look up. I mean, I think it's very good. Well, I mean, I don't know why FIP hasn't adopted as a mandatory document, but you know that I would maybe the FIP board we want to comment. Dr. Prokop, would you like to comment? Why? Okay, maybe Dr. Prokop is not there, but I can think of one reason.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was muting on my mic.
Sorry.
I think that FIP had not adopted it yet because not every exhibitors had done the synopsis. Many of us who had experience with the organizing committee, when the exhibitors sent in the application forms, not all of them even sent in the introduction page so that the OC can send to the jury. And I think I have seen less than 50% of the exhibitors who did send in the synopsis. And that I know that most of the OC, once they got this information from exhibitor, we send it all to the juries so that the jury can prepare themselves well beforehand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. I heard, oh, okay, right. Thank you. I heard actually from, I mean, I think it's from just basically a jury chit chat about the problem with the synopsis. They think, some of them think that it's a little bit biased. I mean, because usually, you know, if you are a good writer, you know, or you are familiar with one of the official FIP languages. I mean, you could actually write a synopsis very well. But obviously, there are other people. For example, there may be some Asians. They might not actually be very well conversed with any of the FIP official languages. I mean, they might have difficulties in writing a good synopsis. So perhaps that's the reason why FIP still has not made it compulsory. But FIP has not actually banned you from sending a synopsis. I think by all means, I think when I exhibit, I always send a synopsis. I mean, it's a very good, I mean, at that point I stressed in talk about the changes since our last exhibit, I think it's very useful. I mean, anything you want to leave out, I mean, do not leave out that. I mean, unless it's your first time that you're exhibiting the subject. Okay, so, right, well, I've got another question from Pablo. He says, there are judges who do not like long descriptions and that sometimes works against a good description of the items in the exhibit. How can the concept of balance be understood between the text and the items that are displayed? Well, what I mean by the balance is that, I mean, your description should be very like writing a book. I think it should be concise and precise. I think basically, and not like it is not like writing a sort of a book or something that you have to you worry about so the context, the syntax, and the grammar, etc. And I think just write concise. Just be write what is there is absolutely essential for the judges or the viewers to read, rather than say I acquired. Some people just say, oh, this cover was sent by my grandmother, blah, 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 and there's a lot of stories about that, and I mean would be sort of will be very interesting stories about how that item was acquired or how that item came about, but may not be totally necessary. So I mean, obviously, if you write a lot of text and around the cover. I mean, it may not affect your knowledge as much, but certainly if you keep doing this or repeating this, it might affect something else like presentation, for example. I mean, if you have too much text on one page and no text on the other, you might affect your presentation. So knowledge, I mean, that's knowledge, that's fine, but okay. So anybody want to have any open discussion or say something?
Andrew, this is Pat Walker. If I can
Yes.
add to your last comment about text.
Okay.
Judges have to read really fast. So thick paragraphs where all the information is like in run-on sentences are not at all helpful. You can take that same information and split it out in different places on your page, convey the same amount of information. So it's not that judges don't like a lot of text, we just don't have time to read it.
No, it's quite right. We only got about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes for each exhibit. Yeah, right. It's very valid.
I can also comment two small comments on text. First of all, stand back from your frame. If what you see is the text, not the items first, then you have too much text. If you clearly see the items first, it's probably okay. Second, I totally agree with Pat. So I like text, but I try to choose it wisely. So I use a lot of text on some very spectacular, difficult examples to show the depth of knowledge, but I do not do it on all the common or semi-rare items, so that, if there is a lot of text, there's a really good reason why there's a lot of text, because then you also signal when a lot of text is really needed and when it's not needed. But I think the most important thing is stand back from your frame. If you see the text mainly, you definitely have too much text.
Yeah, thank you. Thank Henrik.
I agree with Henrik, but I think the problem is that it's a bit human behavior. I mean, a lot of us philatelists, we are so eager to show off our knowledge, and we start to write. And in fact, we should better write a novel, 50 Grays in philately, that they're making a page for our exhibit. And I think somebody should study it in psychology, but I think it's very to human behavior. We like to show off. We like to show to the judges, look, see what I know. And at a certain point, you get a very little cover, and the rest is all filled with text, and that's not the purpose. But I think it's human behavior. It's stronger than ourselves by moments, I think.
So
Stan Chalice here in Guernsey.
Yes.
In a lot of exhibition halls, the lighting ain't great, and it's hard to read text below about 11 point. And I think a lot of exhibitors use far too much text that, particularly when material says on the top row of a frame, that is all but unreadable, certainly with my eyesight. And I do urge exhibitors to reduce the amount of text to what is really relevant. And I personally tend to use 14 point so that it be quickly read, and then judges and those who are looking at the exhibit can then move forward.
True.
If I can add,
go on.
If I can add, also having a system is so good, so that each page you're receiving the information in the same way. So if you start on your title page or first page, and you're giving the rate, the route, the marking, and so that on page 2 you're not doing the marking, the rate, the route, so that as others have said, we've only got 10 minutes to go through an exhibit. If we're having to search for the information every time, that makes it very difficult.
Yeah.
And if I could just go back to, I know it was a while ago, but, and I can't remember who, I guess it was Paul, talking about the judge's library. People would probably cringe at the size of my library because it's very small. I've moved a lot, and moving requires continents, so that I haven't been able to keep everything. But what I have been able to take advantage over the years is the American Philatelic Society library, and they will scan articles for me and send me books. And so when I was preparing for an exhibit when I lived in the US, or for judging, when I received the list of my first title pages and synopses, I would send off a request to the APS library, and within a week, I had a box full of books to work with. And I've also used my fellow judges when I haven't had, when I'm in an area where I'm not accustomed to. I ask them for their suggestions for references. And then I also argue that there's a certain advantage to having somebody who's not as familiar with your area, because it does pick out some of those items of implicit knowledge versus explicit. If I don't completely understand the point that the exhibitor is trying to make, and the exhibitor is such an expert on that area, they just assume that everybody else knows what they know. I can say, look, it's not coming across in the frames.
Yeah.
And if you did this, this, and this to explain a little bit more, your own knowledge will come out much more clearly. So
Sure.
just a few comments on.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. Yeah, very valid. Okay, now I've got a very technical question from Mauricio. I mean, he says, what is your opinion about using QR codes to link other relevant information and not written on the exhibit? Wow. Okay, so this is a very, very, very technical side of things. Yeah, okay, I'm okay with it. I mean, there's no other problem. But the thing is, I mean, I don't know whether all judges are so familiar with the reading the QR code using the cell phone or scanner or whatever. And yeah, it's probably, yes, I don't mind. I mean, doing that. I mean, if you have your synopsis, you've got several QR codes, linking it to. But I think on the exhibit page, I mean, you start saying that, I want to quote something from what and put a QR code on the exhibit page. I think basically judges don't have time just to check it out.
For the general reader.
Hmm.
It's for your reader, not
That's
your
right.
judge.
Yeah. It's more for the reader.
Judges
They
only
want
got
to follow
10 or
up
15
the
minutes.
judges. Okay, I hope that answers the questions. I mean, you could use it in your synopsis or for the reader. It's a lot very useful if you quote a long passage from something. But I think that the judges might not have time actually to go through. Okay, any questions?
Well,
Anybody want to make some comments?
Well, about that QR code, I think, okay, it's a new modern technology, but to be honest, I don't see myself walking around in a FIP exhibition constantly with my phone on that QR code, and then on a very, very tiny phone screen, try to read that synopsis. I mean, I think it makes me nuts by the second exhibit, let's say the third maximum. So I think that QR thing, it's a nice thing for a lot of other purposes, but in an exhibition, on an FIP level exhibition, on an exhibition page, and then hide behind that code the synopsis, and then we should read it. Even as a visitor, I don't see it happening very, very soon. Really, I don't think so. It's more a burden than a pleasure, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Anybody want to make any comments? or have you got any wishes that you want to for the FIP Postal History Commission to do in future? You know, any sort of like seminars, webinars, like I don't know how to get a large gold medal in exhibiting, or you know, anything.
If I may give you some suggestions,
Yeah.
I think we are seeing several, let's call it trends in exhibiting. And I've been just recently going through some of the statements given by the APS on judging and topics. And one thing is how to deal with, let's say, crossover exhibits, which are like combination of traditional and postal history, or maybe postal history and postal stationery. That's something I find very interesting. Another topic which I'm very well concerned is I still find it very, very difficult in postal history to have a non-purely timeline-oriented treatment, because judges don't get it. Still, there are many topics where a more thematic or topic-oriented treatment is necessary also in postal history. And so there are certain topics I think that we are seeing now. I also think the QR code thing is something, and I do not agree with the comments, because these QR codes are things that if I'm a digital native and I make photos of QR codes, and I put them on my computer, and then I use them at home, and I don't look at them in an exhibit, of course. But I look at them at home, and for me it's perfectly natural if I walk through an exhibit and see a QR code and I like the exhibit, I just make photos. So there are certain things that I would say are actual developments, and I would think it would be nice to talk a little bit about those actual developments.
Go on. Yeah, I see. Okay, right. The other thing the Postal History Commission is trying to do is actually try to promote, I mean, one of the aims actually is to promote 2C, Class 2C, which is the historic and social studies and special studies. And so far, and we've been working on a project like that, and hopefully we may be able to come up with something in near future. I mean, certainly it's a very, Class 2C actually is a very interesting way of showing a material. Is actually less mundane than actually showing covers after covers, particularly in postal history. I think, yeah, a lot of people are in favor of that. I'm sure. Chris King, you are an expert in 2C. Are you there?
Yes, but I wasn't. I was actually just doing something else. So you'll have to ask me the question again.
Oh, sorry. You know, we are talking about what the Postal History Commission can do in future, like have another series of webinars on another subjects, and one of the subjects is always in our minds 2C.
The development 2C would be interesting. It's quite a long time since there was a series of seminars and presentations around 2C when Kurt Kimmel was the had just recently introduced 2C. Malcolm Groom did one, Kurt did one, I think I did one, and I think it would be useful to come at it again as a kind of refresher.
Yeah, I think so. I certainly like to learn. It is a very interesting way of, I say, a new look at postal history. So yeah, we bear that in mind, and we'll talk about it in our bureau meeting next time. Exhibits are limited. Is there a comment? New exhibitors find it very difficult to qualify from a large country like India. as number of exhibits are limited for every country and qualifying level is largely immune. So I suppose that's a comment rather than something for me to answer. Oh, okay. This one from Sultan of Hungary. Actually, this question, it says this question goes to FIP. So this seminar was wonderful. I really enjoyed all of them, and I was very useful. My question is whether a similar series of seminars has been planned on the topic of traditional philately. So that's for Dr. Prokop to answer. Has the traditional philately done? Oh, maybe Pat could do that.
No, we haven't. If that's your question.
Okay.
As far as I know, the Postal History Commission had something to start from in terms of the set of seminars. I forget what they were called. They were on the website. As far as I know, the Traditional Commission has never had that set of seminars to start from. And we haven't started from scratch. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. Has any other commission? I think the Postal Stationery Commission is fairly active. It's a special group, and I often see them on Facebook. I just wonder whether they have actually FIP sponsored lectures like ours. Dr. Prokop?
Yes, Andrew. Actually, FIP offers all the commissions to use the Zoom facility to host a seminar like this. But again, it depends on the each of the commissions, whether they are ready to do it. And like Pat said, for traditional philately commission, they have some seminar in stock, but it is the like introduction, if I remember correctly.
It's an introduction.
It has those like an introduction to the traditional philately, how the juries are judging it, those criteria, but not in details like this postal history seminar. Also the postal stationery seminar. If you are interested, they are posting on the Facebook when they are going to have each of the seminars. If you are interested, you may join them in some of those seminars. And you can also write to the commission directly if you are interested in certain commissions, whether they are conducting this kind of seminar or not. Thank you.
Okay. Now I know this question will come sooner or later, but now it's there. From another side, he's asking what's the difference between the postal history class and aerophilately class? Because both of them, you can actually show maps, rates, and flights. Yes, that's a very, very interesting question. Because the aerophilately class was inaugurated many years ago, because in aerophilately, you have the stamps, the traditional side of like you can show stamps, essays, and proofs, in addition to the first flights, which are most of them are purely philatelic. Now, in postal history, unfortunately, if you show something philatelic, I mean, you might have a problem because the postal history judges don't like philatelic items, and then of course, if you start showing mint stamps and errors and essays, I mean, you certainly would be penalized. Even sometimes, if you see an exhibit like that, you probably transfer to aerophilately. But now, actually, to my knowledge, the aerophilately commission has divided the aerophilately into two subclasses. One is actually a bit like traditional, with the study of AML stamps, and so the approach is purely traditional. But of course, the covers you use is the emphasis of the description is more the usage of the ML stamps. And then of course, the other is the so-called the classic, the arrow philately approach about the first flights and the rate and routes and things like that. But I think it's basically it's a treatment problem. I mean, I have actually judged a lot of exhibits, which, okay, they say the MLs of a certain country X or something, but really it's all about mail carried in the sky. So I mean, really that is postal history. I mean, it's supposed to be mail carried by ships, mail carried by land, but mail carried in the sky. So why not? I mean, it just depends on your treatment. I mean, if you talk about a lot about the ML rates, you know, the ML routes, etc. I mean, you could actually enter it into postal history class, even if the title like you know, MLs of country. Okay. Anybody want to make any comments? Let's see. Right. Can we include first day covers, telegrams, postcards, in addition to stamps for any thematic like Olympics? Oh, okay. It's just a sudden change of subjects from postal history to thematic. Oh, okay. Actually, to my limited knowledge in the subject, I think you probably could. There's no reason why you can't introduce any of these things in the thematic exhibit. I mean, it seems that the more varied the material in a thematic exhibit, as long as it's relevant to the story, I think the judges would find it more interesting than just using covers or stamps.
But no first day covers. In thematic, if you go international and that's my experience, and you use first day covers, then the judges, they cut you from the left ear up to the right ear. So then your large gold, even large,
okay, right,
gone with the wind.
Yes. No, but I think what you could do is, if you want to show a pictorial postmark, you can actually window off the first day cover just to show the postmark, even if it's a first day issue of the stamp.
Yeah, but then I agree on that, but then we're talking about the first day postmark.
That's right. There's not quite the entire cover, right? Yeah.
The first day cover. Then I understand that's all the commercial thing that the post releases to get to your pockets, right?
Right.
And that's something which you cannot do. That's my experience in thematic. I also did some thematic exhibiting, and if you did that, I remember the first time, and I was so happy with that first day cover, and it was in fact perfectly for the illustration and the story. And I remember the judge, he came to me and he didn't say anything. He was just knocking with his head. So I knew what time it was.
Okay, good.
The bottom line, Andrew, the bottom line with thematic is that the material has to be produced by a postal administration. So a postcard produced privately, or a picture postcard which illustrates something which has been produced privately, can't be used. And very many first day covers are produced privately as well. They're not post office generated.
Yeah,
so
thank you, Chris. Yes.
You're better off exhibiting in 2C, and you can use more material than you can in some parts.
Right, okay. So,
sorry, excuse me, I have a question, if you allow me, please.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, go on.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for you.
Sure.
Under postal history class, okay, is it allowed if I have postal notice, okay, from the administration, can I put it under postal history class? And if yes, okay, shall I put the original one or just put a photocopy small size? Because you know the postal notice sometimes takes A4 size of paper.
How big is your postal notice?
Let's say size A4 paper.
A4 paper. Oh, that's not very big. I think
Okay.
I would actually prefer the original. I mean, if it's not like a huge one. But of course, if you put too many postal notices in your exhibit, it will occupy a lot of space, and which would have a detrimental effect to, because you're really using covers and things like that. You should supposed to show covers and usages, and then not just notices. Notices are very useful. I mean, just to demonstrate, say maybe the beginning, the inaugurate the route, a new route, or the rate or something. Yes, I mean, if I were you, if I have the original postal notice, and if it's not huge, I mean, I would use there may be one or two. I mean, not the whole frame full of postal notices.
Okay,
I personally actually have some postal notices in my exhibit, which actually occupies a double page. But the commissioner hate my guts because there's a vertical double page, because it's the standards like a British postal notice, which is very long. It's more than like a double A4 page, but it's very interesting just to show a particular rate or particular route or a postal event. Yeah, well, maybe one or two, doesn't matter. But if you have too many, now it will be unbalancing your whole exhibit.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. It seems any other comments from anybody? Okay. Well. All right. So well, in that case. In that case, I would like to thank everybody for participating. In fact, that there are a large number of you have actually followed all the webinars, from the start in August till now. And I know it's very, very tough for you, because you have to sacrifice a Sunday to do so. But I hope you find these series of seminars quite useful. For exhibiting, and they are sort of little snippets that you'll find it very useful when you come to exhibiting. And I personally would like to thank several people. Well, first of all, I mean, I would like to thank FIP for sponsoring all the webinars that the Postal History Commission has held, and then of course a big thanks to all the speakers who has actually done a tremendous job. In fact, see, all the seminars that these wonderful guys have done are new. I mean, they have to do some work and made it up, and it's not just copy and paste from an old seminar that we had before. So it's the most admirable job, and I dearly thank them very, very much for doing so. And then, of course, I have to thank Kelly. I mean, Kelly has sacrificed all her Sundays, 5 Sundays, for actually bearing with us and do the recording. And then, of course, Dr. Prokop is always there, giving wonderful comments, etc. So anyway, and all the participants, really, it's just, I think it's just wonderful to see all of you. And thank you very much. And we will certainly will come back again in the near future with another series of seminars, and maybe in the distant future with a rerun of the seminars. But yeah, who knows? I mean, it's I think the Postal History Commission it consists of fairly sort of active bunch of guys, and I hope you like it. And oh, by the way, in all the seminars, you can find the seminars on YouTube, and if you wish to see any of them again, please do go on YouTube and check them out. Okay.
I have a question, please.
Yes.
Sorry, I have a question to Dr. Prokop, please.
Yes.
Yes, please, Dr. Prokop. These seminars, can be counted to apply for apprentice jury, let's say?
Oh, okay. So far, it's not approved by the FIP board for the qualifying seminars for apprenticeship yet, because for qualifying seminars, once the commissions ask the FIP board to approve that, then we will make the announcement so that all those people who are interested in taking the apprenticeship can attend it. So, but this one, unfortunately, it was not asked for the qualification or qualifying for the apprenticeship.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Can I say something, Andrew, please?
Oh, of course, Chris. Yes, go on. Go ahead.
Just to say thank you, Andrew. Of course, thanks to all the participants, and thanks very much to Kelly and to Prakob. But thank you very much for certainly inviting me and for making this happen. So great job. Look forward to the next series. Thank you.
Yes, we certainly invite you as a speaker for 2C, Chris. and your dear half, better half.
She's gone away. She's sorting out material now. She's got a desk clear.
Okay, so well, okay, so yes, I think it is getting a bit late in Asia now, but I hope you have a nice afternoon, or in the US and in the Europe, and well, I say have a nice day to you, and I'm so glad to see you all and be involved in this project. Thank you very much, and see you very soon.